scientists don't know what really causes this phenomenon. So this has been going on for a very long time, but every time it happens, the scientists come up with a new explanation for it.
Welcome to Don't Turn Around, a podcast about the extraordinary and the unexplained and the profound impact these events have on our lives. This is a space for amazing stories and explorations of the human experience as it relates to the paranormal. And if you've got a story and you'd like to share it, please shoot me a line at dtapodcastinfo@gmail.com. If you're enjoying the show, a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts goes a very long way to helping get that word out. The more reviews means the more exposure, means the more people will stumble in on through the door to hear these stories. As ever, always, Don't Turn Around would not be possible without the support of my amazing Patreon pledges. So if you want to throw a few bucks into the hat via Patreon, there you'll find hours and hours of podcasts, including Don't Turn Around extra shows, short fiction, music, and a whole lot more. Don't forget to check out Old Spirits at oldspiritsinvestigations.com. This is the YouTube series that I'm doing with T. Morris that follows our adventures as a couple dads exploring the paranormal. If you hadn't noticed, I did take a little time off to take care of life, because life happens, as we all know, but I'm extremely excited to be back. A lot of great interviews lined up for the months to come. So many wonderful stories to hear and so many wonderful guests. So it's great to be back. And I've been looking forward to saying this next thing for quite a while now. But hey, let's get into that interview. Welcome back, everybody. Tonight's guest, I've been following on social media for some time. She has made some incredible, very artistic posts regarding the paranormal. She reads the cards. She has an incredible and just lighthearted, very genuine podcast, Drinks and Disasters, as well, which I have enjoyed a great deal as I've been listening through back episodes and listening to episodes as they do come out as well. And I'm delighted to have Carly on this show. I think she will be a great addition to our Don't Turn Around playlist and a good welcome back for me. So, hey, Carly, thank you so much for joining and welcome to the show.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me. I haven't been on a guest spot in a while, so I'm excited.
Well, I haven't had a guest in a while, so I'm excited. I'm excited too. I'm really, really excited to chat. And so when I have a new guest on the show, I always like to start with the origin story as far as where did your interest in sort of the off the beaten path things come from, the paranormal, the weird, and everything in between?
The paranormal. My origin story probably started with the X-Files.
Oh, nice. Oh, I love it. Okay.
It's still one of my favorite shows. I was watching it earlier today. I grew up watching it with my dad and my brothers. And it's just always, I've always liked horror. I've always liked spooky things. But I didn't develop a real interest in the paranormal until about 5 years ago. I just moved to Florida and I moved into a haunted house.
Whether or not you want to get interested, it'll
that's
get your
like
it'll get your attention.
Yeah. So once I started kind of figuring all that out and being like, all right, ghosts are a thing, I guess. Okay, I could talk to them. I started kind of looking back at my life and being like, you know what? This explains a lot of my life that maybe I wasn't just like paranoid, because that like feeling when you're sitting down and you feel like somebody's watching you, but you know that you're alone. So you look all around. I have so many times in my life where I felt that feeling. So like I would back my back up to a wall and be like, I can see what's around me now. Joke's on you. Once I got interested, I was like, okay, I think this has just always been around. I'm just aware of it now.
Things sometimes start to add up.
Yep.
And once you get into the process of just exploring the whole paranormal world, you start to scratch your head and wonder if certain things that happened growing up as a child. I know for me in particular, as I kind of took an inventory of all the strange things that have happened over the years, to me, it all adds up.
Yep, it does. Yeah, it's like, oh, maybe I have always been a little on the strange side, but
Yeah.
also this makes way more sense.
Which is good. Hey, it's always better in life when at least something makes a little bit more sense. Am I
Exactly.
right? What do you feel like it was about like the horror and the sci-fi and the X-Files that drew you in?
You know, I've wondered this a lot because I do tend to be a very anxious person, and I just find something about it soothing, which
Yeah.
I think is backwards, but I know that there's a whole bunch of people who've had the same discussion online that sometimes when your body and your mind are set to run on fear, it's nice to have those moments where like this is an appropriate reason to be afraid.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then
Oh
you
yeah.
can let go of it and move on. So it's just I like that, but as far as the unexplained, like the X-Files, I think I'm just curious and I've always liked wondering, well, what if?
Yeah. No, and yeah, I'm right there with you. The what if is really, in my opinion, a source of peace
Yeah.
and calm and even a little bit of hope that when things are crazy and we can't explain half the more mundane real life stuff that happens to happen to us, other than the universe is really interested in testing us every single day, and you can't figure that stuff out. But the other what ifs
Yep.
kind of open up that world a little bit more, make your experience a little bit more broad. It's not so much focused on, here are my struggles of life, and that's all that I can say why to, rather than why do I feel like someone's watching me right now, which
Yep.
is a little more exciting, I guess, in
It's
a way.
arguably more fun than
It
being
is
like, well,
arguably way more fun.
all of this sucks.
Way
All of
more
this
fun.
sucks so hard. Let's talk about aliens instead.
Yes. Yes. So you moved into a haunted house.
We did.
What was the first indication that you were not alone in this property?
I had a few moments where I was completely alone in the house. And
Hmm.
can I just say, I love being alone. I thrive on being alone.
I get
It's
that.
my favorite thing. True introvert, like to the core. I will stay in rather than going out 10 out of 10 times. So I never really have gotten a lot of alone time since having kids.
Yeah.
I pretty much always have someone around me. My dog's with me right now. So like,
Yeah.
there's usually someone with me, but this was one of the rare times when I was alone and I had gone upstairs and I turned on a movie and I was like tucked in, ready to thoroughly enjoy it.
Yeah.
And then I ended up spending the entire time turning around because it felt so strongly that someone was right behind me that it was like freaking me out. And eventually I like turned the TV off and I moved into my room and closed the door and had my bed was against the wall. So I was just sitting up there and being like, well, at least I can see it if something's coming now.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that was happening a lot, a lot. But I did have one night in particular where there was a few weird things during the day, but I'd stubbed my toe, which is ridiculous because I'm always and forever hurting my feet. But it was important because I was like, this hurts like a lot more than
Yeah.
the stubbed toe. So I was going to go out and get some ibuprofen.
Yeah.
And when I went out into my hallway, I just was hit by like a wall of dread that I
Hmm.
couldn't explain other than in that moment, I couldn't take another step forward. And I had never had anything happen to that extent before where I was like,
Hmm.
I knew that I was not alone, and I also knew that I wasn't. I mean, my kids were there, my kids were asleep, but they weren't in the hallway with me. I just
Right.
knew that something other was in the hallway with me, and it was such an intense fear that I ended up just turning around and going back into my room. I was like, I'll
My
deal with the
toe will
foot
be
on my
fine.
own. It'll be fine.
And do you think, looking back, and perhaps there's more experiences that might help answer this question, Was it dread based on not having really experienced anything like that before, and your mind having a difficult time sort of processing this sense that your space was occupied by something else that you could not see or hear, but you could feel almost on this, vibrational kind of unconscious level almost, and that just went against your sort of your programming, and your body just said, okay, we can't categorize this, so let's say this is dangerous, and let's go
Yep.
hide.
Let's go. We're moving. I think it's a little bit of both. So that house had a lot of activity, but there was one darker energy that would make repeat visits.
Hmm.
I don't think that it was that thing, but like I've gotten pretty good now at recognizing it. But even now, and I've been actively practicing mediumship for several years now, and I still will wake up. I did it last night actually. I haven't asked about what happened yet, but I woke up terrified and just feeling not alone. And my body's immediate response is, this is a threat.
Yeah.
So, um, once I learned, it's actually partly why I learned to use the cards to help me understand what was happening.
Hmm.
Because once you have a better understanding of what's going on, it does remove a lot of the layers of fear. So, like, if they
Yeah.
catch me off guard, like last night, 100%, 10 out of 10 times, I will go, oh, fuck.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I don't like that.
Absolutely.
Let me sleep. But last night, in general, the more information I have, the less scary it is, because I can look
Yeah.
back and be like, all right, you just really wanted to chat. That's fine. Let's
Yeah.
do
And
that.
it's one thing when you are going out and seeking out the experience or seeking out
Yes.
that connection. It's another thing when
When
it's
they come to
something
you.
just shows up, and it's a little bit different. And since we've started investigating, we've had a few occurrences where
Yeah,
maybe we've had somebody, even though we are very careful about cleansing and stating our
right.
intentions of everyone staying where they belong,
They
we've
still
occasionally
come.
had something kind of tag along, or maybe something just passing through, and it will catch you off guard. It will make
Yep.
your hair stand on end. Uh, but then having the knowledge of your past experiences, you can kind of
Yeah.
reset, and that is valuable. But as I've told my own kids, and my parents have been very, curious about what I've been doing over the last couple of years, and I said, well, it's not. At first, it's all scary because you have no idea what the hell is going on, and then even though you have no idea what the hell is going on, you have a better idea of how to approach it with a sense of awe and
Right.
excitement, rather than just I'm scared to death. Not everything's a demon. Not everything is going to like lift you off the
Exactly.
floor and
Oh,
throw
I'm
you
so
across the
glad you said
room.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that is so. So you had the experiences at the house, and
Hmm.
was there a moment? Was that the moment that where you had that dread, where you said this house is haunted?
No, so it actually took a little while. So I had met a group of women um, who they were mentioning like birth charts and things like that,
Hmm.
and like I was vaguely familiar, so like I knew that maybe they would know, but
Hmm.
I mentioned this experience to them, and they were like, "You should have our friend come and she will cleanse and bless your house." And I was sitting over there like rolling my eyes like, "Oh my god." I did ask for like I
Yeah.
was telling them that just because I was like, I don't know how to explain what just happened to me. So it took a few days of convincing me. But what ended up selling me is I thought like I am a grown woman and I was scared. What if
Yeah.
my kids experienced this? And that was the moment where I was like, you know what? Like, what's it actually going to hurt to have this woman come over and like do whatever? And I didn't even know what a house cleansing looked like at the
Yeah.
time. So she came over, she cleansed and she blessed the house. But she gave me the most phenomenal reading. I had never had a reading at that point, period. And
Hmm.
it was one of those where like, sometimes people can read between the lines, but truly, like, she knew things about me that I hadn't even told, like, some of my best friends, and I was
Yeah.
like, "What?" So, yeah, it took a while. She gave me my first deck of cards, and I got started with that, but then, um, ironically, I broke my foot another time. And it's always the foot.
The foot.
Um But I was making some connections on Instagram, and this person has posted a spread and said, this account, Ghost Hunter of South Florida, is doing a ghost hunt. Pull some cards, help
Yeah.
them along the way. And I was like, well, I have a past lives deck, so
Yeah.
why not? Why not
Yeah,
give
why
it a
not?
try? And when I did that, and it was accurate, and I was like, I didn't know anything about this place. I didn't know anything about the place. I didn't know anything about the person.
Yeah.
And they were accurate. So it was after that that I really was like, okay, all right, so I'm getting more into this. This
Yeah.
is the thing. I think it's mostly just I am really curious, and I like the what ifs, but I also like to be able to dig around and be like, well, let's see about that weird situation you just
Yeah.
had. Let's dig around.
Yeah. And when you can start to make connections,
Yeah,
is a pretty exhilarating
it is.
feeling.
It
It's
is.
wild. Yeah, because I've gotten into the cards in the last couple of years, and my wife has started getting into it, and our friend's wife, she's started getting into it, and it's a really neat experience on many different levels in
Yeah.
terms of what it might tell you about a particular investigation or just a particular moment in time, or it just really, it's just fascinating on a lot of different levels, the way it kind of interacts with your own thought processes. But it always feels like there is this external guidance
Yes.
happening when you're
Exactly.
pulling the cards. And it's really wild. And it's something I never thought that I would get into. I would have
Same,
thinking,
honestly.
what? What?
Yep.
So when the lady came and she did the cleansing and the cards, that kind of not only opened you up to this broader world of just unexplained occurrences, it brought you down the path of getting more invested in exploring tarot. And
It did. Yeah. Tarot.
so tell me a little bit about that that journey once you were getting more into it and having more experiences with the cards. And I've seen some of the spreads you've done, and I just love what you do. And I did
Thank
see
you.
that I think I saw today that you're really not going to post much of that anymore on Instagram
Yeah.
because of the vampires out there. And I totally get that. It's not
Yeah.
flattering when someone scams your account, and it seems like it happens to you quite a bit.
It does. It happens a lot. It was a hard decision, but I felt a lot of peace afterwards. So my tarot practice isn't going anywhere. It's just for the sake of my own peace of mind. I'm just not going to share it publicly
Yeah.
anymore. And
Yeah.
that may look like, instead of saying like I pulled these cards and this is how, like, I was feeling this way and I pulled these cards and here's what I learned from it. It'll just look like me sitting down and being like, this is what's on my mind. So things aren't going to
Yeah.
change all that much. It's just I felt like I needed to be like, you know what? I was in the best mood this morning. I was thriving with all the alien stuff.
Holy shit.
Which-
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a little
Which
bit.
is just so fucking cool. I don't even care if it's not aliens. I love it. It's just what a wild time to be alive, I don't even know how I feel about aliens, but I love that this is where we are, because this is the thing that I really love, is being like, this is an actual what is it? We don't know.
And the
moment.
fact that someone asked the Canadian Defense Minister point blank, is this extraterrestrial in origin? And it was cute because you got this little grin on her face, and I just wish I could have been just inside her head for that moment. Like, what is the processing
Right?
that's happening right now? Because
what is going on here?
So endlessly fascinated by that intersection of that, and I talk about it on the show, of the human experience and the unexplained, and then the processing that happens in those spaces in between. And everyone processes things a little bit differently, of course, which again makes it all the more fascinating.
It does. It's just, it's fascinating. So I went from this space where I was feeling just so happy and really enjoying myself. And again, I really don't even know how I feel about aliens. I like the what ifs of it all. But then I started getting message after message after message after message after message about these scam accounts. And I was like, you know what? This is like, it completely sapped all of the enjoyment from what I do out of it. And I decided that it was more important for me to take steps moving forward where I can still fully enjoy the things that I love, and I can preserve my tarot practice for myself, because like I did hit the point where I don't pull cards as often anymore. I don't really want to, because every time I post about tarot, I get hit with the
Yeah.
it's I appreciate the messages. I don't want it to sound like I'm complaining about that, because I do appreciate the heads up, because all of those accounts block me, so I can't see them.
Right.
I
You don't know
don't
what's happening. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that it's happening. It's just like I was really trying to whoops. Okay, I'm back.
Okay.
I
You're
I
good.
was I was really trying to build make a living out of this, and I realized it's just not worth my peace of mind, cuz
Yeah.
tarot started out for me as like this fascinating thing that I was handed, because during that reading, she literally stopped and reached into her bag and gave me one of her decks. And she goes, they are telling me that this is going to be important to you. And, it was a pivotal moment for me. And I don't want to lose that feeling. And that's what, so it was a hard call, but tarot more than anything, like when I found it, I had really lost sense of who I was, and
Mhm.
it really was a guiding force for me to be able to find myself again. And then after I went through the process of rediscovering who I am and all of my interests, it led me back into the world of the paranormal in
Yeah.
such a unique way that I am more interested in preserving that
Yeah.
than being
Yeah.
able to
Okay.
post on Instagram.
Right. Now that makes the utmost of sense. It's a personal thing.
Yeah.
And there's a certain level of vulnerability that comes with it. And when you are opening yourself up to something bigger,
Yep.
then you are with little understanding of what maybe you are giving a glimpse into. And
Yes.
then so it's intimate as well, right? It's an intimate moment for yourself. It's an intimate
Yep.
moment for whatever forces you're interacting with. And social media is great in a lot of ways as far as connecting
Yes.
people and opening people's minds to incredible things. But then at the same time, then you have those people that take advantage of the fact that
Right.
people are willing to put themselves out there, and they really manage to just taint it. And it's
Yeah.
I have a love hate for social media. Yeah, I do.
Yeah. I met a lot of incredible people through social media, but I really do have a very I don't want to say unique, but I have a vulnerable way of expressing how I feel without giving too much details away.
Mm,
And when they take my face and my work and then use it to try to get people to get people to give them money, it's just like, this is just gross.
it's gross.
It is.
Yeah,
It's gross. It doesn't feel nice. And I have a lot of people, and I appreciate the attempts to reframe the thinking. I really do. But a lot of people will say, well, it just means that you've made it, or think of it like a compliment. You've gotten to this point where people want to be you. I said, but that's not it. Because this isn't like a fan account. This isn't someone reposting something of mine saying, I love this account.
right.
I admire this account. This is somebody taking my work and saying, this is me. Come in.
Yeah,
I would love to offer you a reading. And it's just, they're saying that it's my backup accounts now. And it's just, there's not really any effective way to stop it. I feel like I've tried everything that I can. And now it's time to take a different approach.
yeah,
And that approach is just to shift the way that I'm having these conversations.
yeah.
So tarot's always going to be a big part of my life, but I just am not going to publicly share it for a while.
Hey, I think that's smart, and I'm interested to see how where your journey goes from here.
Me too, because I don't
I
know.
yeah, but I have no doubt it will be interesting and exceptional. And
Thank you.
it's a hard decision to make. It's a very hard decision to make when
Yeah.
something that used to nurture you suddenly is not serving you in the same way.
Yeah,
You have to figure out where's that coming from
exactly.
and fix it
And
basically.
fix it.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was either make a shift or walk away. And the
yeah,
idea of walking away made me really sad, and I realized that the things that I'm doing are worth sticking around social media for. It was time to shift things. So
yeah. And so shift you have.
shift I have,
And
yes.
and speaking of shift, and I think this came about from an outsider's perception, somewhat separately from the other social media stuff. Maybe it was a few months ago, maybe it was longer. I've been in such a time warp for the last 6 months. But you made a comment that you were eager to start doing some more investigation and getting out more and
Yes.
investigating more. So what inspired that choice?
So in Florida, I would go ghost hunting with a really fantastic team. Board Party Paranormal. You can follow them on Instagram, and
I think I do.
yeah, all of the members are just, they're really great investigators. They're great people. But when I moved back to Texas, there was a part of me that was really sad about not being able to go out with this group anymore.
Mhm.
And I don't necessarily use devices. I have some of the devices, but it's really fun for me to work in tandem with investigators who have the devices, and I can do my thing with the cards, because if
Yeah.
I don't have to split my attention that way. I can
Yeah.
just,
Yep.
and it's a truly amazing thing to sit and I'm pulling cards and spouting what I think might be nonsense, like, yeah, I'm not always right, and I'll say that up front every time I get things wrong. But then to have the EVPs play right after I've just said what I think,
Yeah.
and they like match up, those
Yeah.
moments are so cool. So life circumstances being what they are, I ended up moving back home to I live with my parents. My kids and I live with my
Mhm.
parents right now. And that was another very hard decision.
Yep. I
um
bet.
and I was looking for a way to get out, and kind of like, I grew up in this city. Um, we moved away when I was in high school, but like
Mhm.
technically this is home
This
base
is
for
home.
me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was excited to explore parts of Texas with a haunted background, because when I lived here before, I didn't have that view
Yeah.
set. I didn't,
Yeah.
I was going to some of these places already, but I never looked at it from the lens of, it's haunted here. There's
Right.
ghosts. There's ghosts. So, yeah, I mean, that is still one of my definite goals. I need to get back to that, but life had other plans once again. So
As life
as
often
life does,
does.
so that got slowed down a little bit. Hoping that that'll be able to pick back up again in a little while here, but it really was a matter of being like, I moved home and now I have this whole new set of things to explore. All of these
Yeah.
different stories that I sort of knew, it's just I never looked at it through the lens of, this could be real. And now that
Yeah.
I'm back, I wanted to get out and explore some of those things for myself.
Yeah. And that's a beautiful thing. Just it opens up a lot of possibilities.
It does, yeah.
And yeah, I give you a lot of credit as well for having that moment of realization where, I need a little self-care right now.
Yep.
And this is what it looks like.
This is what it
And
looks like. Spooky things.
and let's face it, I mean, there are a lot of people down on their luck in one way, shape, or form. It is, since the pandemic, there is a
It's rough out there.
national mental health crisis. I mean,
Yes.
across the globe, right? Even and for me personally, paranormal has been a valuable means of self-care because
Yes.
it has so many different facets to it that it allows me to get away when I need to and spend some time with the people that I love the most, doing some really, really cool things. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect is it forces me to remember that the world and the universe and reality are a lot more fluid and bigger than I am. And that time is probably one of the most inconsequential pieces of the
Yes.
puzzle with reference to all this stuff we've been exploring. And I think for me, who I have always struggled when I'm dealing with difficult situations, is getting into that mindset of, this is feeling awful.
Yep.
And I cannot imagine getting through this to a place where it's going to feel better and it's going to feel like this
Yep.
forever.
Yep.
And exploring the paranormal is a real helpful way of realizing that there really, honestly, is not any situation that does persist forever. and that
Exactly.
time isn't even really linear. I
No,
mean, when
we
we
made up
explore these
time.
things, and yeah, exactly, we made that shit up. We
Yep.
made that up for
We
better or for
fully,
worse.
for better or for worse, we fully invented time. And yeah, I completely agree, because I think one aspect of the paranormal, especially if you have anxiety or depression, is that it does take you outside of yourself, and it it has a way of shifting your perspective in a way that I think is hard to achieve on your own sometimes.
Yeah,
Like I've had
yeah,
I've had lots of experiences where, like, I've communicated with spirits, and they were like, a lot of the time they just want to tell me what happened to them. And that's kind of what I do. I call
yeah,
myself Casper's dad. Like, I'm not trying to fix anything. I just, like, I'm here. Tell me what's up. Tell me what's going on. I will listen. I'll do what I can. I like to retell those stories just to give
yeah,
them a bit of
absolutely.
closure. But a lot of the time through those experiences, I've been able to find in my own life bits of being like, oh,
Yeah. Oh,
that makes
totally.
sense.
Yes,
Like, it's a way of
absolutely.
reframing that, like, I don't know, it reframing. And I think it's the curiosity that drives me to get outside of my own head, which is
Yeah.
sometimes the biggest part of the battle, is just getting out of my own damn way.
Yes.
Like stepping aside from the
Yeah.
overthinking and all the things that my brain does, and just being like fully in the moment and communicating with somebody that you can't even see.
Yeah. And honestly, too, I also think that when you are or have gone through something that's been traumatic or something that has caused you deep emotional pain,
Mhm.
which most people, whether or not they'll admit it, have had
Mhm.
some kind of crisis that has really, 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 you know, stabbed that knife in deep. And
Yep.
I think having the ability to feel that depth of emotion, feel that depth of being a human, I also think is vital to really making a strong connection with that quote unquote the other, with
Yes.
whatever's beyond that veil, is to really know what it likes to feel to that level of intensity, which I don't know if what I'm saying makes any sense, but I
It
think that
does. Yeah.
capability to feel in this unbridled way
Mhm.
uh, allows us to feel the more subtle energies that might be in a space.
Yes. No, I agree with that completely. And I am a very deep feeler. So, like, if I feel happy, I feel very happy. I feel all of the spectrums of emotions, but I feel them all very, very deeply,
Hmm.
which, if my mental health is bad, is a bummer.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
also, in terms of ghost hunting, it does help, or not just ghost hunting, but just paranormal in general, because if people are asking me to pull cards on an experience, I have like a mental catalog of this specific being reminds me of this being, so I'll like
Yeah.
classify them based off of, okay, so this is more earth-based thing,
Yeah.
this one's like maybe a little bit more malevolent, this one is just real sad, or
Yeah.
things like that. And it really helps give you a much broader understanding of the situation in general when you are. So, it's one of those things. People always say being a deep feeler is a blessing and a curse, and I have to
Yeah.
agree. But in
I
ghost hunting,
agree.
very handy.
Very, very handy. So tell me a little bit about your mediumship
Hmm.
and how that intersects with the cards, and just a little history about being sensitive and how that all came together.
Yeah. So after that moment with the when my foot was broken and
Hmm.
I pulled cards, I started using cards anytime I would have an experience. I started just practicing and saying, okay, what was this? Like, it who was trying to talk to me? What did they want? And I started learning how to put those pieces together.
Yeah.
So I can get information outside of the cards, but I am a self-taught medium. Like, I just accidentally figured out that I
Yeah.
could do it. So it's not like I had any formal training. And
Right.
for me, the cards are like a grounding space for me. So, like, if I lose my train of thought or whatever I was thinking, I just look back down at the cards and I'm like,
Yeah.
right, I was looking at the poison card or whatever, like, and it helps get me back on track with what I was thinking. So when I'm doing a mediumship reading with the cards, I will, if let's say you came to me with an experience and you were
Mhm.
like, last night 3 a.m. there was a figure standing in the corner of my room, I would sit down and say, okay, was this even paranormal? Which is
Right.
generally my starting point,
It's a great
because
starting point.
I mean,
Mhm.
I feel like you always have to go to the mundane first, rule out the
Absolutely.
mundane, and
Yeah.
then get to the paranormal. And I do that with my mediumship readings as well, because I'm a jumpy little thing, like people mistake things.
Of
A
course.
coat on a chair will look
Yeah.
like a shadow figure,
Yeah.
rule it out. If it looks like there was something, then I'll start digging into who were you, and I will go based on the cards. Like if it was a grandfather, for example, to me, I would feel like a more masculine, older energy. And I don't know how to describe that, the way exactly that
Right.
feels, other than like, imagine being in the room with your grandpa and being like, right, this is grandpa energy. This is, your
Right.
grandpa doesn't feel the same way as your dad, or I don't know, maybe it does. But in my mind,
Yeah. No,
they
that makes sense. Yeah,
they're
I get that.
distinct, they're separate. Um, and so I'll say, I'm pretty sure that this is a male, probably older. um I'm picking up these bits of information, sometimes, not often, but occasionally I'll get like glimpses of images. But more often what I get is movie or pop culture references.
Oh, really? Oh, I like that. I
Which
like
can get,
that.
it can get ridiculous sometimes, because I feel like that's just the way that the universe or whoever gives me these things is like, you'll understand it if we tell you like
Yeah.
this, we'll
No, that makes
understand
sense.
it. But I will pull up specific scenes from movies, and I'll be like mid explaining, and like, this is like a grandfather energy, and then I'll be like, that scene from this movie, and they'll describe a very specific moment. Sometimes they know what I'm talking about, sometimes they don't, but those tidbits of pop culture or
Yeah.
movie
No, that's
references, they give me
fascinating.
context, and they
Yeah.
give me like, okay, so that character was feeling this way, so it's not like they're coming to get you, they're just like, they're really, really, really wanting you to pay attention,
How
so
interesting. It's almost like
it's
the pop culture memories you have forms
yes,
this like decryption key for this
exactly,
information coming in, and then it
exactly,
translates it via this pop culture filter, and then
all
you're able to
filtered through the
express it.
cards.
Oh, I
Yeah. So
love that.
I
How
say that I
cool.
use the cards to paint a picture, and I really do, because it's all the little bits and pieces, but connecting them together is the way that my mediumship works. And it's not like, I used to be like, I wish I could just like tap in. Like, I have some very talented medium friends who can just be like, oh, yeah, this is what he looks like. This is what he smells like, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. This is his message. It takes a lot more work for me to get to that point. But then I also realized that I wouldn't find it as satisfying if I had the answers right
Of course
away.
not.
I
Of
like
course not.
I like the act of uncovering. I like those
Yes.
moments of, what is this? And digging and figuring it out.
Yeah.
And I love it when I get the movie references and things like that, because it's like, in the moment I feel a little bit silly every single time trying to explain it, because I'm like, I think I referenced Aladdin one time recently, but it's things like that where I'm like, I know that this sounds ridiculous, but I promise if you stick with me by the end, this is going to make sense.
So you are the pop culture medium.
The pop culture medium. That would be a fun way to describe
There's your
me. Yeah.
branding right there. Okay.
there's
I just
there's
gave you
my
some branding.
branding.
No, that is
Yeah.
just a beautiful, beautiful thing that you've just described, because I think by describing your experience, you were really able to illustrate this personal connection that mediums have, and just
Yes.
card readers that they have with their cards, and with the process, with the act of defining and retelling this particular narrative, that it's personal, and you really
Yes.
just that was Well done. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah, of
moment for me where I'm
course.
like, that is so exciting to hear it described that way. That really
Well,
resonates with me.
I like talking about it too because there was like, I did this for a while before I even would call myself a medium because
Yeah.
I was like, well, but I don't see things, I don't hear things. Every once in a while I'll get like a shadowy glimpse, but it's very, very, very few and far between that I will see or hear or experience anything like that. And I think that letting people know that mediumship isn't one size fits all. Like
Right.
you can get information how you get information, and it doesn't mean that you're wrong. It just means that you use a different set of tools. It's
Yeah.
I really did this one other time, but I'll say it again here. It's like an artist. If you are a painter, you can use watercolor, acrylic, oil, some combination of all of them. You can draw with pens, you can draw with
Yeah.
pencils, you can draw with oil pastels. There's so many different forms that art can be created, but we never would say that you are not an artist because of that. And
Right.
artists use their chosen medium, and just because whatever form your mediumship takes, it doesn't mean that it's less valid. It just means that you just experience it differently. And I am neurodivergent, so my
Mm-hmm.
brain does work differently than
Yep.
most people's, and therefore my mediumship also works differently. It is scattered. It's little
Yeah.
bits and pieces here and there because that's the way that my brain works.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And honestly, I mean, neurodiverse is one of my favorite terms. I have
Yes.
the good fortune of I'm the engineer on another podcast that is not paranormal. It's a parenting podcast with this incredible psychologist, Dr. Dan Peters, and we've done a lot of shows on neurodiverse, and I do think that's a lot of us. You know,
Yeah,
there's
it is.
like normal is boring one,
Agreed.
and I can't take credit for that. That's the title of this guy's book. And then we all are, we all have something that
We
makes us
do.
function and perceive and process a little bit different than the person sitting next to us. And if we can endeavor to listen and
Yes.
empathize and try to view from those beautiful different perspectives, that our world has every day with every conversation the potential of getting just that much bigger.
Yes, exactly. And I think giving yourself permission to make space for yourself and for the way that you think and the way that you interact. It took me a really
Mhm.
long time to accept any of those things because I spent years and years and years and years and years trying to pretend like I was normal. And the second that I stopped pretending, the second that I was like, you know what, this is just who I am. I do things like lay on the floor and eat pickles when I'm stressed, and that's just a part of me. And
Yeah.
I like that about me. Now I have all these people who are like, I relate so much to this.
Yes.
Thank you so much for
Yes.
saying this because I really do think that that is part, it's part of the human experience, but that also should be a conversation more held in the paranormal world, that like we
Yes.
really, and the psychic community, witchy community, whatever you want to call it, because both these places are making room to be more inclusive, but I just feel like it shouldn't have taken me so long to be able to accept the fact that I was talking to ghosts, and I get information at the same level of people who can experience this differently. It's
Right.
just that the only accepted way, or the way that it's presented to the world, is very specific, and not everyone fits in those boxes.
Yeah. It's very specific and sometimes stigmatized as well,
Yeah.
or there are superiority
Yep.
complexes and overlooking others that make valid contributions. And like I said, social media is great for a lot of things, but it is
Yes.
also very great at making people feel very alone as
Yep.
well. So it's,
Yeah.
and so by what you're doing out there and just being so accessible and so real, and that's one of the things I love about Drinks and Disasters. There will be a link in the show notes. It's just real. It's like
It
just
is very
it's
real.
hanging out with a couple cool people who are being very, they're just having a good
we
time.
are,
They're
we
throwing
are
some
very
drinks back.
honest. Yeah.
I laugh quite a bit, and I enjoy it, and it's a great experience. And it, again, it humanizes all of this stuff, and
It
which is a
does.
great thing. And I think that's so important with the paranormal. And it seems to be this resurgence in recent years of interest in the paranormal.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's because people have been looking for faith elsewhere.
Elsewhere.
Faith maybe
Yeah.
not in the divine power, but faith in the world is more difficult to explain than we think. And so I would love to see a trend as well of inclusion, and the old
Yes.
guard kind of opening the way for the new guard, and
Yeah. To make
but we'll
room
see.
for
Mhm.
people to experience things in different ways,
Mhm.
because I really enjoy my brand of mediumship, but I'm also positive that there are other people out there that experience mediumship in such unique and cool ways that are different than anything that I could dream up, and their method is entirely valid and real too. And it's
Yeah.
just, that's one of the things that I have tried hard to be like, this is how I experience it, because for people like me who are listening and being like, well, I'm not a medium because XYZ. No, you are. It's just you process information the way that makes sense to your brain.
Right.
So, will everybody get Looney Tunes references? No. But it happens.
It happens. It happens. Again, you're just the messenger, right?
I am
See?
just the yeah, it gets I was trying to I was doing cards on a live once, and I was trying to explain to this person that I don't remember what they asked, but they asked something about like, will this job offer go well? And I was like, I don't really know. But I said, what my brain is showing me is a cartoon opening a closet and all these boxes falling out. And it took me a while to like sort through that and be like, is it going to go your way? I don't know. But go to this interview, because good things, like more opportunities will come from this one thing that you're doing. It doesn't matter how that one thing turns out, but being willing to open that door means that all of these incredible things are going to come through. And that's, you know, it's worth talking about.
Yeah,
Is what I
absolutely.
mean.
So we are kind of nearing the end of our time here
Yeah.
together. I did want to ask you really quick.
Uh-huh.
So I know you're a mom.
I am. Yeah.
How old are your kids, if you don't mind sharing?
I don't mind sharing. I have a soon to be 14-year-old,
Okay.
a almost 12-year-old. He turns 12 this week, and I have a 6-year-old.
Okay. So I have a almost, well, yeah, soon to be 14-year-old
Uh-huh.
and a 15, soon to be 16-year-old. So are they interested in what you do? Do you guys talk about the paranormal, or are they just like, this is just what mom does,
This
and that's
is
cool, mom. That's cool.
it's a little bit of both. I
Uh,
feel like when we lived in Florida, I was able to be a lot more open about what I'm doing, and like, you can't talk to me right now because I'm doing this reading, or
yeah,
I feel like things changed a lot when we moved in with my parents, because I live in a very religious household now. So most
I
of what
see
I do is kept on
the deal.
the deal. Yeah, my parents know what I do, but it's a don't ask, don't tell type of situation.
Yeah,
So it's changed a lot since we've got here. But my son in Florida, if he would experience things, he would come and tell me about it, and I'd pull cards and be like,
yeah.
all right, let's
It's-
let's figure it out. My 12-year-old was pretty interested, or sorry, my 13, almost 14, was pretty interested in like crystals and things like
mhm.
that. Um, but again, just being where we are now, it's temporary. But so, when they get older, we'll see. I think of the three of them, the 6-year-old is the most likely
Yeah,
to
yeah.
do something involving cards,
Mhm.
but the other two, I really can't say. My son has a lot of really cool theories. I think he would be
Yeah.
more likely to get into cryptids and things like that.
Oh, yeah. Okay, which is
Um
very cool.
yeah, and I'm not sure which way any of them will go yet. So there's definite interest. It's definitely something that, like, if they want to talk about, I'll talk about it
Yeah,
with them. It's just the last few months things have taken a weird turn.
right. The playbook is a little bit different right
Yeah,
now, but
it's a little weird right now. So we'll see once I can be in my own space again, then
yeah.
we'll see.
And that makes a ton of sense to me too. You know,
Yeah.
and but as we were saying earlier, no, situation is permanent, right?
Exactly. This
And so
is
it's a
temporary.
holding pattern,
Yes.
and you take care of what you got to take care of,
Yep.
and then move on. Very
Exactly.
good. So we are at the end here, but before we end, I prepped you a little bit on the don't turn
You did.
around question.
Yes.
So are you ready? Because
I'm ready.
I'll ask it flat out, and I'm looking forward to your answer.
Yes.
Carly,
Yes.
do you turn around?
Absolutely yes, every single time. Whether it's fear or curiosity, I'm going to turn around and see if something's there.
Beautiful. Wonderful answer. Carly, tell me, where can folks find the incredible things that you're doing out there?
You can follow me on Instagram and TikTok at The Village Tarot Witch. And content may be changing, but I will still be both places actively posting.
Awesome. Content may be changing, but it is the same awesome person behind the
same me.
content. No doubt it'll be great. And make sure, folks, you
Yes.
check out Drinks and Disasters as well. It will
Yes,
be an
Drinks and
uplifting
Disasters.
experience. Assured. All
Thank
right,
you.
Carly, thank you so much for joining me here. And I look forward to chatting again.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. And don't forget to swing by Apple Podcasts to leave Don't Turn Around that 5-star review that you've been thinking about leaving the show the entire time you've been listening. Don't forget to follow Don't Turn Around over on Instagram. It's at Don't Turn Around Podcast. And like I said, if you've got a story, please reach out. I would love to hear from you. If you have any thoughts on what you heard on this week's episode, drop a comment in the comments down below. Make sure to make sure to subscribe. And if you're watching this on YouTube, we'll make sure to enable notifications so you know when there's Don't Turn Around content dropping on this channel. And with all that said, looking forward to seeing you all next time.
We just don't know what really causes this phenomenon. So it's been going on for a very long time, but